Okay, so when you are graphing the function, there are a few things that sometimes we get stuck on. I've seen people get errors with the window range or a syntax error. If you get a syntax error, a lot of times it's because you used a minus and not a negative there. If it's at the beginning, you do have to make sure that you're using the negative. Okay, and when you're going back and forth between different windows, I recommend when you go back to this, you go zoom 6, that's the standard window. Okay, and this asks you to just draw a rough sketch of the graph. So if it's, I don't like that, but it really does just have to be rough. Okay, that way you can see you have 1 minima, you have 2 maxima. Okay, so graph it, draw a rough sketch of the graph in the space below, estimate the relative minima and the relative maxima, and state the x-coordinates at which they occur. Okay, part of your rubric for the way that I'm going to grade this question is that you have this in the proper form. So, the proper form I'm going to write here for you is the y-coordinate at x equals, and then you put the x-coordinate there. Okay, so it's the y-coordinate at x equals, and then you are going to find those values. So for the relative minima, we're going to go to second, Calc. We're going to select a minimum, and then we're going to the left of where we think it is and to the right. Okay, you can guess right on it, or it will still give you your values here. So for the relative minima, we are going to write -7.379 because it says to round to the nearest thousandth at x equals 0.744. So please check not only your rounding, but also check your form. Okay, we're rounding to the nearest thousandth. Okay, and feel free to write down this form if you think that will be helpful for you. And then we have 2 maximums. Okay, so if you're having trouble with the maximums, just make sure you go to the top, and then you can just go a couple to the left, a couple to the right. You are telling your calculator, find the highest point in between those. Wait till it says maximum. That's how you know you found the correct value. Okay, so -2.993 when you round at x equals -0.590. Okay, and then our second one, again, I'm going to go to the maximum. We're going to go to the left. We're going to go to the right. Okay, and then you should have 7.372 at x equals 2.84. And then we're rounding that up to 6. All right, what questions do we have on finding the maxima or the minima for these, or the format? Oh, yes. If there was only one of them, yes, you could just say none. Yep, that would be fine. Because we have had graphs like that. Good. Okay, now the second one, you are going to be finding the zeros and then graphing your function. So when you are doing this, you are filling out the table. Like I'm going to give you the x values. I'm going to let you guys check your zeros here. These can be written in either order. And then when you connect these, you are going to make sure that you connect them with a curve. So we're going to put this into y equals, you have x to the 4th minus 4x squared plus x plus 3. Okay, so you are allowed to use your table here. Okay, so I'm going to go to second table. Now, just because I'm having you write these down doesn't mean that you can't use other values to help you create your curves. So this needs to be as accurate as possible. Okay, and then if I give you a scale, then you can't change it, okay? So it has to be on this grid. Not that you would want another one anyway for this. So -2, 1, -1, -1, 0, 3, 1, 1, and 2, 5. When you connect these, you are going to be connecting them with a curve. Okay, if you need more points, that is okay. Like, you can also change your window so that these look the same. So this is a 5 by 5, -5 by 5. Make sure you do a negative and a positive, because I've just helped a couple people where it's like positive and positive, and then you get an error in that window range. Okay, so I'm actually going to look at my -3. So -3 is 45, so it is way up there. So I'm going to curve this through. Okay, so then you guys will have something similar, and then when you are doing your 0 function, it's second calc, you're going to go to 0, and this is where when you're finding your 0, one of these has to be above the axis. So I try to get as close as possible and go one to the left, go back to it, one to the right, and then you can guess. So for here, when you're doing your zeros, you're going to do your x values. Don't get confused if you see a scientific notation. This number is so small that it rounds to 0. Okay, so sometimes your calculator will give you 0, sometimes it will give you the scientific notation. That is fine. And then we have to find our other one. So left bound would be under, right bound for this one would be on the positive side. You have to have that sign change. Okay, and then this one did round it to y equals 0. All right, and then I'm gonna show you my work for the last one. The number of books you should have is 14,317. Okay, that is the exact answer. So this one says to the nearest book, to round to the nearest book. So round the coefficients of the regression equation to the nearest thousandth. Here it says to the nearest book. Okay, and then in terms of your work, this is what you should have. Your R² value for lin reg, quad reg, cubic reg, and quart reg. This one happens to be quartic again. Okay, and we are rounding all of those to the nearest thousandth. Okay, you do not have to write this down. I was just showing you why I rounded the way I did. So if I'm rounding to the 3rd place, I'm looking at the 4th place. So just in case you guys made a small rounding mistake, you can look back and see what your A, B, C, and D were, and you can make that adjustment. I also wrote down the steps to the storing the regression equation, because that is what you will need to find this exact answer. Okay, the 14,317. And yeah, we got some ink marks today because I got into a fight with another Okay, and then once you have checked that, will you guys go to the front side? Okay, and this is what your calculator portion will look like. We are going to do the calculator portion second tomorrow.